You're listening to Season 2 of the griefsense podcast. I'm your host, Mimi Gonzalez, aka the Zillennial Griever. I am a creative, entrepreneur, social impact strategist, and community organizer based in Hartford, Connecticut. But most importantly, I am a griever. griefsense is really a safe space for creatives who are grievers. And I really created this space because it's something I wish I had. And sometimes you have to create the things that you wish existed. I am a serial griever where I've experienced significant loss, losing about 20 people before I turned 25 years old. And it was really hard to find community, people who looked like me in the death positive movement space. On the show, you'll mainly hear from Gen Z and millennial minoritized grievers, but you'll also have some advocates on the show who share our experience, but also want to amplify our voices and our stories. So what is griefsense? What does that even mean, right? It's not just some fancy name of a brand of the podcast, okay? It's actually a term that I've coined to name my experience. Sometimes the words that exist in our vernacular aren't really representative of our lived experience. And so thus griefsense was born. So griefsense to me really is an inner sixth sense and intuition that's unlocked after experiencing physical loss, and it inspires purpose through creative expression, hence grievers who are creatives. So we do this in three ways. One, we embrace our mantra, which is we live life as a privilege. Two, we honor our ancestors and the legacies of our loved ones who have died. And three, we not only normalize talking about grief and death and everything in between, but we really talk about the importance of planning for our death and talking about this in community with our families. What are our death care wishes? And really normalizing that, because that is not something that we typically do in our very death phobic world. I hope that when you tuned into these episodes that you feel super comfortable. I want you to think that you are in a living room, or in Spanish we say the sala, but the grief sala. And I hope that you're able to have tea in your hand or a cafecito, so that way you're comfortable. I want you to feel like you're talking to your best friends or your primos or your cousins, people who really understand you and get it. And if you are not a griever, and if you are here to learn and listen to the stories that are shared on the show, thank you so much for being here. Your voice is important too, because guess what? If you're not a griever now, unfortunately, you will be one day. And I'm hoping that the insights that you hear on the show will help you navigate that experience. One thing I wanted to also share, y'all, griefsense is always going to be lowercase, because death, grief, all of that, it can be really scary. So these conversations is to really destigmatize death and grief, and really making sure it's like relatable, digestible, accessible. And yeah, it can be scary for sure, but let's do it together. Let's be in community together. So with that, welcome to the movement, welcome to La Familia, and welcome to griefsense. Let's dive in. Welcome back, listeners of griefsense. You are here with another episode, and I am so excited to have the amazing Gabrielle Perez here with us today. You are all going to really appreciate the insights that she shares. Her story really got me in my feels when we recently connected on LinkedIn. And y'all, I'm telling you, if you are not on LinkedIn already, you need to get on there like yesterday. It's just, I've been meeting amazing people with incredible stories, and the power of networking and the power of storytelling. Literally, if Gabrielle never experienced loss, or I never experienced loss, we probably wouldn't know each other or have connected. And so that's really the power of sharing your story and being on LinkedIn. So without further ado, I definitely want to bring Gabrielle up on stage, on the virtual stage, to have her introduce herself, and then we'll jump into our conversation. Gabrielle.
Hello, everyone. First of all, Mimi, you're incredible, and this platform that you provide is awe-inspiring. So thank you for inviting me to share this space with you and with your listeners. I am thrilled to be here, even if it's, tough topics. I think it's so important to share experience. And as you said, this is something that I wish I had more of, right, when I was going through my losses over the last many years. But yeah, as you said, I'm Gabrielle. I was born and raised in Northern California in a suburban town called Folsom. People probably have heard of Johnny Cash's Folsom Prison Blues. We're known for the prison. not the best rep, but I digress. I moved out to New York City about 5 years ago with my husband. We're high school sweethearts. We've been together for
Oh,
13 plus years, which is pretty incredible. And yeah, I work at a company called Cannes Lions, which is the International Festival of Creativity. It's essentially the Oscars for the advertising and media world. It's a very exciting and fun job. I feel lucky every day that I get to wake up and work with the amazing clients and brands and agencies that I do. And yeah, I mean, a little bit more about my family life because that's really who made me who I am. I'm Puerto Rican. My dad is full Puerto Rican. My mom is a mix of all things white, Scottish and Irish mostly. We laugh and say that my sister and I are Puerto Rican Vikings because, personal brand. But grew up
sounds hilarious.
really grew up in a really amazing family. My parents have been married for 35 years, and I just grew up surrounded by a lot of love, and they are the reason why I am the person that I am. I have a really strong faith and spirituality, which I think is a lot of the reason why I'm able to stand here and be joyous in nature, even after all of the loss that I've been through. And yeah, on top of that, I like to have a good time. I like to do a lot of cool shit, pardon my French, but life is
Oh,
too short to do anything else, right? And I think every day that I wake up, I really think about the legacy that my ancestors built for me and that there's a duty to them to carry that forward and to be the best that I can be for my community and for the lives around me. So that's a little bit about who I am.
a little bit. Wow.
Just a
That
little
was
bit.
amazing. Like y'all you see why I had to have her on the show. Like
You're so
clearly.
sweet.
Wow. Well, I am honored to be in your presence. I am honored to know you and to amplify your story. And I'm really excited for our conversation and what you're going to share. I know it's going to impact a lot of people. So, in true grief sense fashion, at the beginning of every episode, we call who we're going to honor and really welcome them into our space today. So, I want to give you that opportunity. Who would you like to honor? To
It's a big question for someone who's lost a lot of people. And I was thinking about this in advance of our conversation. And if you'd allow me, I'd love to name the names of the
Oh,
folks that I've lost. Because it's been a few, but they're all incredibly special to me in a variety of ways. Um, I've lost all my grandparents at this point, unfortunately. On my mother's side, I used to call my grandfather Boompa. He was actually my first person I've ever lost when I was 12 years old. That was my first introduction to grief and losing someone that I loved, and my grandma on my mom's side as well. On my dad's side, I call them my mama and papa, Pedro and Angela. They were lights of my life, loves of my life. I was incredibly close with my mama and papa. My uncle Joey and my aunt Rochelle have both gone with God as well. And my uncle Brad on my mother's side. And then I unfortunately have two losses that were the most traumatic in a sense. Both committed suicide, unfortunately, and we can talk about that because it's a very different grief to experience than some of the other forms. My cousin Alden committed suicide at age 14. I was in college at the time. And my very good family friend, for all intents and purposes, he was a brother. I called him my big brother. Sean committed suicide as a California highway patrolman on the job, which
wow.
was obviously incredibly difficult. So those are my people. I call them my angels. I know they're with me every single day, but I bring them with me in all that I do, and I absolutely feel them with me here today in this conversation. So those are the names I'd like to honor.
Wow. If you would join me, I'd like to take a deep breath to hold space for everyone that we named. And so we'll inhale for 4, we'll hold for 4, and then we'll exhale for 4. Let's breathe in, hold, exhale. Okay. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for sharing their names. I love, 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 love when people share their names. And, I do honor and respect the fact that, whenever I talk about loss with someone or whenever I have a guest on the show, someone might not want to share their names, and that's completely valid and okay. But I really do appreciate when people share the names because then more people get to know who they were and like what their names are. And I think that that's so beautiful. So
I totally
everybody
agree. You know
listening.
what's funny is I think one of the best things that someone can say to you after you do have a loss, that's so great because I know a lot of people who haven't experienced grief. I'm actually surrounded by a lot of friends who have never been to funerals before, have never lost someone close to them.
Yeah.
And they always ask me, like, what do I do or how can I be there for you? And one of the best things anyone ever said to me, and this was after I lost my Uncle Joey to COVID actually in
Yeah.
2022, and it was 15 days before my wedding day. It was just awful in every sense of the word. Yeah, it was pretty horrible. And I was working. So if you can imagine, I lose my uncle and then I jump back into working and planning for my wedding. And I was on a call with a client actually. Shout out to Adrienne. She knows who she is. She's an incredible friend of mine.
Oh, Adrian.
And I said to her, she said, how are you doing, Gab? What's going on? I go, I got to be honest with you. It's been really tough. I just lost my uncle and I'm struggling. My wedding's in 13 days. And she just said to me, tell me about him. And it was
Wow.
just the simplest way to open the door to speaking about a man that I loved so much. And I think a lot of people's initial questions are like, oh, how did he pass? Or I'm so sorry. And really, all you have to do is honor them, give them the space and the platform to honor that person. And her asking me, tell me about your uncle, just it brought me so much peace and gave me the space for the next 10 minutes to share a little bit about his life and how he changed mine. And ever since that interaction, I love to share that story because I think it's really helpful for people who oftentimes don't really know how to approach
Yes.
a conversation with someone who just lost anyone they love. So yeah, I just find it to be a really beautiful thing. So thank you for allowing me to share those names with you.
Yeah, and I love everything you said. That's exactly right. Like everyone thinks it has to be a super grand gesture after someone passes away. A simple instead of how are you? I'm sorry, I'll keep it real and I've said this many times on Grief Sense before. I hate when people ask me how I am after a loss. I'm like, how do you think?
Right,
How do you
right.
think? Yeah. Like that no. Like I know there's no bad intent behind it, but just don't ask that question.
Yeah, and also it
You know?
changes day to day, right? Like how
Right.
you articulate how you're feeling. I mean, when I was going through Papa when he had was diagnosed with cancer, he was dying for 9 months, right? And so I was essentially caring for him and very intimately involved in the day to day. I would go see him every day after work, and I worked at a law firm at the time. And every day I came into the office, people would say, like, how are you? How are you? And to your point, it's like one day I wanted to walk in, I wanted everyone to just hug me. Like I just felt like I needed to be touched and consoled. And then other days I was like, don't look at me, don't touch me. I want to be in my office with the door shut and I don't want to talk about anything. So you can't, it's such a spectrum. And to your point, it's a really difficult question to answer, nearly impossible if you're in the thick of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I will gladly say I am that person that it's not, I don't know. I feel like it's by default. I will probably say something uncomfortable, like, well, my dad just died. So yeah, I'm doing great.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Mm-hmm.
make humor out of it. But,
Totally.
but yeah, I love this. I love this conversation. So, folks tuning in, like, I would love to know what are some things that you've appreciated when, you've experienced loss. What were some things that, really helped you in your journey? And what were some things that you're like, okay, yeah, no, we're not going to do that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, I can
um,
think of a no,
let's do
another
it.
no.
Hmm.
Something that I find really interesting is people sometimes want you to qualify your grief. I
Mm,
got this a lot
don't get
with,
me started.
I got this a lot with my uncles and aunts who passed, and also with my brother Sean. I refer to him as my brother Sean because that's who he is to me.
Yep.
And oftentimes people would say, "But wait, he wasn't really your brother, though."
Yeah.
He wasn't you weren't related to him by blood. And it would make me see red
Yeah.
because don't tell me
Yeah.
my relationships with my people that I love. He was my brother in all aspects of my life. So, and same with uncles and aunts. It's like, oh, you were, so you, that meant you were close with him. Like, this is hard for you. It's just so interesting. It's like people are trying to, it comes from a place of they're trying to really understand why you're hurting so deeply. And to your point, I don't think it's usually with malintent involved at all,
Right.
but no one should ever have to qualify their grief. And
Yes.
I think especially as a Latina, everyone is family, right? That's how we were raised.
Period. Yep. Yep.
So, of course, my uncle was also my best friend. Of course, my aunts mean this much to me. Like, that is a core part of our identity and culture.
Yep.
And a lot of people who don't have that lived experience can't quite understand it. Maybe they have uncles in faraway places that they've never met. That's just not
Yeah.
how I was raised.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
it's just a good note for people again, like don't feel like you ever have to qualify your feelings or your grief.
Mm.
And it's a good lesson for those who again are trying to figure out how to properly communicate with someone who is experiencing this.
So good. I'm so happy you said that. This is so good. Yeah, I definitely feel the whole definitely being like Afro Latina, like the whole qualifying the grief thing because, with my family, there's a lot of I'm not gonna say severed relationships, but kind of, where
Mm,
it's like breakups or divorces, and then there's also like a lot of people died in my family, so like you end up getting another family. So basically, in my experience, my biological father died, and I basically got adopted by my stepfather's family, and I had a whole
mm,
new set of grandparents, and my stepfather is adopted, so he has two moms. So like I have like a
mm,
really huge family, so
beautiful.
like people that I'm really close to who have died, a lot of them I'm not blood related to, but that's my family. That these are people
Right.
I'm really, really close to. So I really felt that. And also when we're in such a death phobic world, which is so wild to me because like especially within the last 2 years and even now with just global, everything that's going on in the world right now, there's so much death and loss and so many reminders of that all
Mm-hmm.
around us every damn day. I
Mm-hmm.
really don't understand how we are in a death phobic world. At this point, I'm convinced we're choosing to be death phobic and really trying to look the other way. But
Yeah.
like specifically at work, to your point about the qualifying grief, like literally, unless you have lost a spouse, a child, or a parent, your grief basically doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. No bereavement. Yeah.
Like
Craziness.
it doesn't matter. And so, and even the word bereavement to me, like I've actually been having this conversation pretty frequently lately. I don't like the word. I don't like the word. I think it's outdated. I think it needs to just be thrown away and a whole new term needs to be brought. And so I've seen different companies do like compassionate leave. I've
Mm,
seen an approach around like integrated leave or integrated loss or integrated grief. And I really love that because it's like really dignifying this person as a whole person and
mm,
realizing that like, hey, when you lose someone, no matter who the hell it is, that's life altering. You are not going to be the same person that you were before. And so
1000%.
expecting someone to come back from said leave and they still have to perform at the same caliber, the same quality that everyone else does when their whole world just completely changed. Like it's just so not dignifying and it lacks so much empathy. And so that's something I'm really trying to like work with people around as well and offering like integrated leave consulting and but I'm really trying to focus on the young people at work because I
Yeah.
think you and I and this is why I really wanted you on this show and I feel so seen by you because there's not a lot of people that I know. I mean, of course, like in our communities, of course, but like at work, I was the only person who was my age that had experienced so much loss before the
Mm-hmm.
age of 25.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that the older we get, the more loss is coming, right?
Right.
And so, like, obviously, I would never. I'm grateful for my grief, but like I could have did without it as well, like.
Yeah, girl, I
But
feel you on that.
but at the same time, like there was no support for young people like me at work who was experiencing loss. And it just felt like, okay, cool. Like, y'all don't care. Like, I understand I have a job and I have to do all of these things, but like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to do this work, but I have bills to pay and I have to be here and I have no choice just
Yeah.
to keep it real. But it's like, we don't get that same support. So, really going forward, I'm really trying to focus on like supporting creatives and, of course, people within work, no matter where they work,
Mm-hmm.
um, just shining a light on young people
It's
experiencing
so
grief.
important. And I think all the time too, in my experience, if I didn't have the foundation of my family and my faith, I would not have come out of what I've been through in a healthy, positive, optimistic, and hopeful perspective for my future. There's
Mm,
no chance. I know that with a fact.
mm,
And to your point, workplaces are usually not set up to provide the tools to managers to be able to properly handle people who are going through grief or don't have the processes in place. Bereavement is a great example of of that to your point.
yeah.
And I think about all the time, there are so many people out there that feel so alone in their grief that they go to work and they have no support. And then they come home and they also don't potentially have support. And I have such compassion for that because something that I always hold a lot of gratitude for literally every day, saying my prayers and thank you to God that I have my family because that's what got me through. And there
Mm,
was such community around me to be able to help me move through that space.
mm,
And I think, again, choosing if you don't have blood family that's there for you, your chosen family is just as important. I say this to people all the time. The people that you choose to spend time with your life is the most important choice you'll ever make. Your
yes.
partner that you choose in your life, that will really make you or break you as a person. And I'm really lucky to have found, I call them my soulmate friends, who have stood by me through thick and thin. And you can tell when you have friendships and family members that hurt when you hurt and
Mm,
experience
yes.
true empathy. I'll never forget that one of my best friends, Supreet, we've been friends for 13 years now, and I used to call her, she's the best. I used to call her all the time and going through the and dying process with Papa, with my grandfather. And she would sometimes break into tears in moments that I couldn't
Mm,
because my initial
wow.
emotional reaction to something is to kind of push it back, archive, clear the mechanism for anyone who likes baseball movie references. And I just feel like there's a job to be done. So in the caretaking of my grandfather, my grandmother, my other uncle Brad, there's this part of me, for better or for worse, that can disassociate a little bit so that
Yeah.
I can just focus on the person that is in the process of dying. And I'm really thankful for that side of me because it enables me to step up to the plate in ways that other people sometimes can't. But I've also realized that the flip side of that is I have to work really, really hard to actually go back into myself and allow myself to experience the pain from that grief because you can't bury it. You have to go back to that place and you have to deal with those emotions. And so it's an interesting dynamic of my personality and how I've been able to get through things. But I think, as we were sharing before, it's the beauty in the brutal, right? And being able to recognize the sides of you that step up when they can. And then also being able to recognize, I need a bit of a break. I'm not doing so well. I need to take a day off of work and just cry. I need to start therapy again. I need to start prioritizing myself and my happiness instead of, making sure I'm always there for everyone else.
Mm,
So it's a journey. It's a
yeah.
lifelong journey, day-to-day journey, figuring that out.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. I think a lot of people are going to feel very validated after hearing that. And like to your point too earlier about like work, I mean, if you don't have the support at work and then again you feel alone at work or alone at home, we spend the majority of our time at work.
Oh my gosh.
Like
Yes.
that boggles my mind when I think about it at times because it's like sometimes like of course everyone has a choice where they work, but like it's obviously easier said than done to get up and
Mm-hmm.
go and to make life changes and to do all of these things when you have the weight of the world on you and the weight of grief on your shoulders,
Mm-hmm.
especially recent and like fresh loss and fresh grief. And so is there a time, whether at your current company or in previous companies where you were experiencing loss and someone like really did something super supportive for you,
during that time? And, what would your advice be to managers on work teams to support, employees experiencing grief at work?
Yeah, I have several examples because I'm so incredibly fortunate at Can Lions to have an amazing leadership team who
Yeah.
is incredibly supportive. Um, I've been with the company, I joined the company 3 weeks before the pandemic hit
Woo!
as a live events girl, right? I was going into this company wanting to plan one of the biggest international festival of creativity, right? Like it was a massive production and a massive event, and my job was to sell partnerships for that event. And then COVID hits. We shut down the event for 2 years. My job title kind of changes and shifts, and what I focus on changes. It was a very crazy time. And that whole process of being in the pandemic, fleeing really from New York City to go back to California to be with my family. My mom was unfortunately diagnosed with breast cancer a few months into the
Wow.
pandemic. There was just, it just felt like,
Wow.
a pile-on. And my team at every point, we would have team meetings every week during the pandemic of how's everyone doing? Everyone was very open and honest and transparent. And I think something that I pride myself on and I encourage a lot of people to do is to always bring your full selves to work as much as possible. This requires leadership to set the tone and to invite people to a safe space. But that being said, it's also on us to show up in the ways that we want to show up to work. And so when I come to work and I'm having a hard day, I am very honest about it.
Yeah.
And I think it's also really helpful to be communicative about it because then other people don't potentially misinterpret your attitude or your behavior. So I'll say, guys, today's the anniversary of my grandfather's death. It's a hard day for me. I'm probably going to be a little bit quieter today, but I just wanted to let you know if you say prayers, if that's your thing, if you take shots, if that's your thing, anything that you can do to remember my grandfather today, I'll be so honored by that. But that's going to be how today rolls for me. And I've always been met with, of course, oh my gosh, let us know what we can do. A specific, really amazing example of this, and it was one of the most devastating moments of my life, and probably one of the hardest I've ever cried in my life. I had lost my grandmother from COVID in February of 2022, which was again my wedding year. My grandmother was my best friend since I was a baby. She and I were kindred spirits. She was 4'11", super feisty, and just the best time. She was the best time. And losing her was devastating to me. I had always dreamt of my grandmother being with me when I picked out my wedding dress, being there at my wedding. She loved Alex, my husband, so much. And so losing her at the start of what was supposed to be the best year of my life was really brutal for me. That being said, I really tapped into that disassociation side of myself because I did not want to let my grief stop me from experiencing joy because there has to be room for both, especially like we deserve to have joy. It's the year of our wedding.
Yeah.
And so, we jumped into bridal shower, bachelorette, all of the events that happen throughout wedding year. We get to literally 15 days before my wedding, and my uncle Joey, this is my mama's son, my dad's brother. So if you can imagine, for my dad, he just lost his mother, and now his brother goes into the hospital with COVID as well. And I'm at work and I'm about to fly out the next day to go home to California in the lead up of my wedding. And so I'm still in New York. I get the call from my dad, honey, it's not looking good. And I just lose it. And I am the type of person, again, I don't cry in front of people. I was kind of raised like, stop crying, I'll give you something to cry about type mentality.
Yep. Yep.
So it is not my go-to reaction. And in that moment, I just felt like the world, universe, God, you name it, was playing a cruel, cruel joke on me.
Wow.
And my Uncle Joey and I were very, very close friends and very tight. And I called him every single week and caught up with him, and he was just the best. And so knowing that I would likely also lose him from this same horrible disease that I just lost my other best friend earlier that year, 15 days before I'm supposed to walk down the aisle. It just was insane. And so in that moment when I'm sobbing, I had to get my shit together. I had to get on the next flight out because my priority was I need to get to my uncle to make sure that he has a, a graceful passing and to be with him in that moment. I know he would want me there. So my colleagues happened to be in the adjoining office and they immediately see me and they all just run to me and allow me to just sob in their arms. My good friend Sophie immediately called an Uber for me. She texted my husband on the side. I'm putting Gab in an Uber. She's on her way home. This is what's going on. Because I couldn't even formulate words. And I've never been like that in my life.
Yeah.
And so they took care of me in the moment that I really needed them to. It wasn't until I think 6 months later that I was remembering and having flashbacks to that moment where I actually sent a text to my friend Sophie and I said, I just want to say thank you for what you did for me in that moment
Mm.
because I didn't have the words or wherewithal to understand how lucky I was to be surrounded by supportive people at work in that moment, but you were really there for me. And then as soon as I arrived home in California, my work team had already sent flowers to my parents' address in California for my family. I mean, they really, at every single point, were so thoughtful and respectful and checking in and doing it in a way that I knew was from the heart and they really cared about my well-being and gave me all the time that I needed to recover from that. So again, advice to anyone at work is just to hold the space and to ask the person what they need and just to let them know that you're there. Sometimes it's all you need to hear someone say is I'm here whether you want to talk to me or not, whether you want me to completely ignore you because you feel like you need to just be on your own, whatever you need, you tell me
Right.
and I'm here. That's sometimes the best thing that you can say to someone.
Thank you so much for sharing that story. And, that's like back to back loss, and definitely want to hold space for everyone tuning in who also lost someone to COVID. I mean, it was so sad back to back all the time, hearing news
Yeah.
and hearing your story too. I wish I could hug you.
Oh,
um,
hugs through our virtual space.
yes, virtual
I
hug.
feel it. I feel it.
Um, and hearing your story gives me hope because, I mean, like, there's so many people, and it's so funny that you had said, like, really bring your full self to work and, like, communicate, and, like, I'd like for that to be true for a lot of
Hmm.
people, but it's not true for a lot of people who don't have that supportive, like, environment at work.
Yeah.
And so, like, I'm thinking about I feel like you can see more of that in the corporate world. Like, I feel like there's more, like, support there, because I definitely had a very supportive, team when I experienced the loss of my grandfather too, and, like, I wouldn't have been able to navigate that without my team at work
Hmm.
at that time, also in 2020, also during COVID. Um, but, like, thinking of the early career talent or, like, the people on the front lines or people who are in, like, service centers or, like,
Hmm.
in
Hmm.
more service-based jobs or, like, like, really high demanding, not a lot of room for empathy or growth, like,
Yeah.
those types of spaces, like, it's really tough, I think, for people to bring their full selves to work. I feel like that's a privilege that a lot of people don't get,
Yeah.
but
100%.
I do appreciate what you said about, like, being real about, "Look, this just happened." Like, I could only do so much, or, like,
Yeah.
really try to communicate or come up with a plan on, like, what's realistic on what can get done, and, like,
Hmm. Hmm.
but I think it really puts some, weight or just some effort on the manager's side or the leadership team side to, like,
Yeah.
make that decision, like, "Hey, maybe this person on the team can handle this while this person's out for a little bit," and just, like, really coming up with a solid plan and not
Yeah.
expecting everything to fall on the grieving person.
1000%. Oh
So
my goodness. I agree with you totally. There has to be more onus on the company itself to set up proper procedures in place and to be communicative about that from the beginning of the employment, right? Like understanding
true.
as soon as you're hired, this is what happens if, God forbid, something happens to you. These are the supporting resources we have in place to help you go through that. We want you to know that this is a place where we support you because life will happen, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's really important to be communicated top down in the very beginning of a job. And I would add to that, I think a lot of people, to your point of this death phobic society we live in, so many people want to live life pretending that death doesn't exist, which
Mm,
again boggles my
that part.
mind. Yeah. And I really feel like if you are able to come to terms with the fact that everyone dies, that you're going to die, the people that you love are going to die. It sounds really morbid when you say it like that, but it's the truth.
Very true.
You actually live life with so much more purpose and presence. And you also understand much more clearly the boundaries that you have for yourself and the types of people that you want to surround yourself with. I had a company prior to my current company that was not a supportive work environment.
Mm,
And in going through the death of my uncle Brad, who was dying of cancer, I had to urgently get on a flight to go to North Carolina to help care for him in those moments, which I was, of course, honored to do.
yeah.
And I find out from my colleagues who, bless them, I had an amazing support system from my colleagues, but leadership not so much,
Mm.
that my leaders were actually saying horrible negative things about me
Oh,
while I was dealing with this situation with my uncle. And it was in that moment where I made a decision for myself that I can no longer continue to work for these people. And
mm,
I do recognize that there's privilege in that, right? I knew that if I quit that job, I could figure something else out for myself. And that is a huge privilege. So I recognize that 100%. But I think, again, there's a piece of me that because I've been through the loss that I've been through, I
mm.
recognize that life is too short to put up with some bullshit like that. And to
Period.
really, and to really say, like, I just, this is not aligned with my ethics or my morals. My soul is calling me elsewhere, and I know that it will end up being okay. Because if I stay on this path and I stay surrounded by people who are not supportive of me in my times of need, I'm going to continue to endure heartbreak. Why would
Mm,
I choose that road?
yeah.
So
Wow. Felt.
I just think, again, like really it's a lot of self-work, right? And reflection of trying to think about, what do I need in my most difficult moments?
Mm.
And doing what you can, and also having expectations of the people around you to support you in the way that you need to be supported.
I love that. I want to uplift everything you said because that's exactly what grief sense is. Like literally, like just really realizing that we don't have all the time in the world. So what do we look like spending time at a place or spending time with people who are sucking the life out of us rather than
Hmm.
breathing life into us? And again, of course, I agree. It's definitely a privilege. And yeah, so I definitely, and I know that's a really hot topic right now. A lot of people are really struggling at work. And in
Hmm.
this economy, oh my goodness, this economy is something right now. Okay. And
Hmm.
like, I know it's not as easy to get up and go and to make these types of decisions, but I really hope that people are able to come up with a plan and be able to find a place that's more nurturing of their dreams, of their mental health, of their well-being. Because like we said, we spend a lot of our time at work. So just
Yeah.
really hoping and praying for everybody out there going through that. Um, so, Gab, recently you posted on LinkedIn about the 6 year anniversary of your papa.
Hmm.
And you had said in your LinkedIn post, and it really like struck a chord with me because I didn't really think about it like that from my experience, but then I was like, holy cow, like that's exactly what I feel too. And so I'm just really interested to hear your thoughts on it. But in your post, you said your papa's death was like the start of your new life. And so I
Hmm.
kind of wanted to know what you meant by that. And yeah, what comes to mind for you about that?
Yeah. Oh, he was such a special man. One of the loves of my life for sure. And my papa loved so deeply that I would never want to leave him. So you can probably resonate with this as a Latina, at least in my Puerto Rican family. It's not the normal thing to leave home. The normal thing is to get a house down the street from your parents and your grandparents and stay there forever and just raise your family in one big community. And there's so much beauty to that. And I always thought that that would be my story. My husband is Serbian, and I call the Serbians the Puerto Ricans of Europe because there's so many similarities between our two cultures. But he was the same way. And growing up in the same town and leaving for college and coming back, we always said, well, of course, we're going to come home. because that was always the plan. And I had to really sit down my grandparents and explain to them why I was choosing to actively leave for 8 hours away to go down to San Diego to go to college. They could not understand it. They wanted to support me, of course, but they're like, why don't you go to the state school down the street and live with us and save money, you know? And so I had to really tell them that that's not my dream and that's not my hope for myself and I want to do more. And it was always a really difficult guilt, honestly, that I carried with me for leaving them. And I struggled with intense anxiety in college. I had multiple panic attacks in college, being away from family and praying to God that nothing would happen specifically to my grandparents while I was away. And when we did end up returning home, Papa got diagnosed with cancer, I think like a few months after we moved home. It was almost like he waited for me to be home. And I do believe there's something to that and like the control that we have of our body and brain body connection, all of that, and everything in God's timing, of course. But it was just this weird, like he waited for me. I'm here for a purpose. And I was not my best self when I lived back home in Sacramento after college. It was really difficult for me. I saw my friends who went off and were living in New York, LA, Chicago, and being in their young 20s and drinking and partying and exploring and traveling. And here I was working with people who were much older than me and surrounded by the suburbs and not feeling like I had any sense of purpose whatsoever. And in that time, I was very much realized that my purpose was to take care of my grandfather. And I knew in the lead up to his dying that once he died, I was going to have to really start anew. And
Wow.
the only thing that I can, it's really God is the only thing I can contribute it to or attribute it to, I should say, is I just felt called to New York City in my gut and in my soul. There's no explanation of it. I have no family out here. I had one friend who moved out after college and we visited him and I just got bit by the New York City bug and I felt every single force of the universe was like, this is where you're supposed to be. And it did not make any sense at all for what I was dealing with in my life, where my family was, where I was at in my relationship at the time. And I remember I came home one day from the law firm to Alex, and I think we'd been dating for 6 or 7 years at the time. And I just said to him, so I'm going to move to New York. And
What was his reaction? He was probably like, girl, what?
he kind of looked at me blank face. I'm like, so I'm going to move to New York. This is what I have to do. Like, this is what I feel like my soul is calling me to do. I want you to come, but you don't have to come because it may not be your dream. I think you're my person. I want you to be my forever person. But if I don't do this for myself, I will resent you. I will resent my family. I cannot stay here. I have to go. I have to listen to this calling. And he kind of looks at me and he's like, can I think about it? Of course, of course. And then 2 days later, we honestly didn't really talk about it. Then 2 days later, he kind of looks over at me in bed and he goes, let's move to New York. And the rest was history. And my grandfather, I know it's kind of sappy, but he's the best. My grandfather hadn't passed yet at the time, but I started making plans because it was inevitable and his cancer progression was getting worse and worse. He ended up passing away January 16th of 2018. And I ended up moving to New York September 1st of 2018. And my grandfather, again, I don't think I could have moved across the country if he was still alive because he and I were almost codependent with each other in a bizarre way. And when I was in college, he used to call me every day, baby, I miss you so much. My preciosa, when are you coming home to me? And I would just cry and cry. It was so brutal. And so I knew, I was like, he has to transition into his next life for me to have mine. And my grandfather to me, and such a big part of my life, again, as I mentioned in the beginning of this, is carrying on his legacy, the legacy that he and mama left for me, truly. And something that I realize now in both of their passing is, and I'm not sure if you can relate to this too, but my grandparents didn't give a shit what I did for a living. They
Mm.
didn't care how much money I was making. They didn't care what designer bag I bought for myself. They didn't care about any of that. They loved me for the most basic human being that I was, which was their baby, their granddaughter. And sometimes there was a beautiful part of that, but sometimes I wished I could talk to my grandparents and share with them the work that I was doing or the creative things I was doing or the events that I was putting on, but they never could quite understand it, right?
Yep.
And so in their passing, something I feel so deeply to my core, whenever I walk the streets of New York or when I'm in Cannes and doing these amazing events, I really stop and have moments where I just look up and I'm like, you can understand. You can understand now. I know that they get it now. I know that they see me living my dreams. I've had experiences after moving to New York that I never thought I would have in my wildest dreams. I know this is where I'm supposed to be. And I know that they get that now in their passing. And to me, it's been really key and fundamental to helping me find peace with them not being there because I miss them every second of every day.
Mija's giving everything in me not to cry right now.
Oh,
Ooh, because I feel everything that you're saying, and I know they have to be incredibly proud of
thank
you.
you.
And oh my goodness. um, it like just hearing you talk about them, it makes me feel like you are kind of altering the trajectory of your family's life with all of the amazing things that you're doing. Like, who else in your family is doing all of these really cool things, and you get to honor them through what you're doing. Like, that's so powerful. And like, just even thinking about being Latina and everything that comes with that, and even being mixed too, being biracial, and just everything that comes with that. Like, I feel like you're really changing the trajectory of your family's life and future, and that's so beautiful. And
Thank you.
you
I'm
know that you
also so grateful that they all keep me grounded, right? Like, I would be nothing without them, and I'm incredibly proud of everybody in my family and who they are. And my cousin Lisa, for example, she's an x ray technician in the Bay Area. She's raising two beautiful Mexican daughters and she's just
period.
crushing it. And I'm so proud of her. My sister is a Latin teacher in San Diego. My dad was, born and raised in essentially, the projects for a little bit in San Francisco before he moved to Daly City and is now the owner of his own financial services and tax practice. Like, all of my family members have been so incredible in continuing to keep the legacy of what my grandfather and grandmother built for us. I mean,
Wow.
Papa was the youngest of 11 kids, and he was literally born on a dirt floor in Puerto Rico, in Penuelas. And for him to pass surrounded by his 14 grandchildren, all his, you know, his three kids, cousins, God knows who's else, like coming to the house saying goodbye to him. It was so beautiful to witness
Wow.
because all of his work paid off. And he only had an eighth grade education.
Period.
Like, this man and my grandmother worked her ass off, worked for United for years and years. And again, like, they built the foundation of this family. And I just think it's my duty and legacy to follow my dreams, whatever those dreams are. Like,
Yes.
I may not be in New York forever. I may not, be doing massively creative things for the rest of my life. I may decide in 10 years that, like, actually, I just want to be a mom. Who knows? I have no clue what God has in store for me. But what I do know is, again, life is too short and the legacy runs too deep that
Yeah.
I have to follow my dreams and what I'm being called to do. And that in and of itself is honoring your ancestors.
Mic drop, mic drop, mic drop. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I definitely want to hold space to talk about all of the creative projects and things that you've been into as well. Can you tell us about what you do at Cannes, and, what are some of the cool things that you've been able to work on? And then do you also feel that, the legacy of all of the people that have died, your grandparents, your uncles, your brother, your best friend, um, how do you think their legacies have influenced where you are right now in terms of
Mm,
like maybe how you approach certain, creative projects or the way you, yeah, how you go about that? I would really love to know.
yeah.
Mhm.
It's a great question. So, my job by nature is sales, right? So, I am targeted like any other salesperson, and I need to bring in X amount of business to Cannes Lions each year in the form of partnership activations. And when I got the job, I had never really been in a sales position before. I had never had a target to my head. It was very intimidating to me because I don't look at myself as a salesperson. I feel like sales oftentimes has a really negative connotation
Mhm.
to it. I think people often associate sales with like scummy, gross people trying to sell weird vacuums and things that you don't need ever in your life. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that. And when I actually told my old manager who hired me, I said to him, I'm like, I am not that person. I am a person of relationships. I love people. I love getting to know people. I want to find synergies with their businesses and with ours and implement them. This isn't to me about the money. It's
Yeah.
about doing really creative projects. And I think Cannes Lions it's a legacy brand. We've been around for 71 years, and we have such respect in the industry that I think we do have a bit of a duty to give back to businesses and amazing organizations and bring people along the ride with us. Um, from the time I started working in the business, I have been advocating for change internally and externally from a DEI perspective. So, starting a change committee inside the business during the pandemic when so many people were struggling, and make sure we were providing a safe space for people to get on Zoom and just talk about their feelings and reactions to things that were happening in the news. I started reaching out to nonprofit organizations to figure out how we can better work with them and enhance diversity at the festival. Adrienne, my client, she runs what's called CCDC, which is the Can Diversity Collective. And I partner with her to create a beach space at the festival, which is specifically for people of color. And historically, the advertising industry is not a diverse industry. It was run by the Mad Men of New York, right? We've all seen John Hamm and the other white men on that show. That was a
Yep.
pretty accurate portrayal of what that industry was like. And as a Latina woman, I was like, well, this has got to change. We got a lot of work to
Same.
do.
Yep.
And what I have loved seeing in my 4 years at Lions is the dedication of our leadership to try and institute that change ourselves and to really lean in with our partners to do that. And again, I think my people in my life that have passed away, I feel such a duty to give back as just a part of who I am. I think service is one of my key values of my person. And even though I'm not KPI'd on service, right? I'm not paid my bonuses based on, these types of projects. It's what gets me up in the morning, and it's what I'm so passionate about. And I think that's why at the end of the day, I have become so successful in my role because I've built these relationships with clients who have become friends. I'm on texting basis with all my clients. We check in with each other. We, hold space for each other in different moments. I've had very vulnerable conversations with many of my partners. And to me, like you said, we spend so much time at work. Why would we not lean in to make it the best experience for both parties that are in this partnership? One of my favorite examples of a project that I worked on was with Google. They come to the festival every year and they have a massive beach activation. And obviously, they're Google, they're one of the big guys. So they really blow it out of the water. And I wanted to work with them on something a bit more meaningful. And their focus back in 2022 was all about accessibility and marketing. And we had never had ASL interpreters for our stage sessions before. And so
Wow.
I worked with Google, right? I know that's changed. So I worked with Google to get ASL interpreters for our stages for the first time. And then we also collaborated on an accessibility and marketing report that went out to all of our delegates and everyone in our database. And when I met my client on site, we both actually had a moment in Cannes where we were holding each other's hands crying because we had
Oh,
met a deaf delegate who came up to my client and saying, thank you so much for doing this. I never thought I would be able to have a great experience at Cannes because I didn't know if I'd be able to understand what was happening on stage. And that's the reason that I do what I do. Like, those
Wow.
are the projects. It's like, if you can use creative strategy to unlock solutions
Yep.
for old problems, that is what it's all about. So again, for me, it's bringing in all that I've learned from the people that I've loved, realizing that life's really short, realizing that life is really about the people living it and the community that we have here. Why can't I use that to give back in my work, in my day to day? It's not all of what I do, but it's definitely a key focus for me. Because again, it's my passion, and it really is what makes me tick. And so I think those are the types of creative projects. And I would encourage anyone who feels like they're not sure if their work is for them, or if they're in a bit of a rut and they're not feeling passionate about the work they're doing, stop and do some self-reflection about, what your values are,
Right.
and how you can bring a little bit more of your personal passions into your workplace. And I guarantee even slight changes are going to perk you up
Yeah.
and get you excited to start your workday in the morning. So that's what I've been able to do. And I've been really fortunate that my team supports me in that.
Love that. Look at you leaving your footprints on the world. And I love that. That's so
Thank
good.
you.
That's awesome. And I truly agree with you, right? Like, I feel like the people that have died in our life, or even honoring our ancestors, like, they sacrifice so much for us to be here. It's like, how can we incorporate their legacies and things that they have taught us into work? And I've always told people, like, and I've always been someone who's had like multiple things going on at once. Like, I always had like a full-time job, but always doing something creative on the side. Always, always, always. And I just felt like that is what I needed to be nurtured and to be, included in so many different things. But with a lot of the loss that I had, and you had mentioned that you experienced, unfortunately, two people close to you, I think you said, unalive themselves. That's actually how I got into like community organizing and activism. And during that's how I learned how to love public speaking and how to like really convince and
Yeah.
persuade people. Literally, I persuaded people to be alive because I was doing a lot of suicide prevention work.
Mm,
And through that work is how I was able to become a speaker, and how I was able to like literally, no
so
matter
beautiful.
what your status is in the company, whether you were the president, whether you were a new hire, whoever it was, I was able to get you on board with something because I knew how to talk to you like a human, and talk to us about like, what are the things that we are experiencing. And it's so funny. I have to share this story with you. It literally just happened 2 days ago.
Oh my gosh, tell
So,
me.
Latina moms, bro. Latina moms. And I love mommy, if you're listening to this, I love you. But she has this thing where, you cannot go to sleep without the dishes being done. Thankfully, I moved out the house a few years ago.
Hey, I'm team mom on this one, Mimi. I gotta tell you, I'm the same way.
No,
I'm neurotic with the dishes.
I get it, but I have to tell you, like, she traumatized me. Like, like, so
Fair
now
enough,
I'm
fair enough.
happy I'm at home now, and like, of course, like, I go to bed with a clean kitchen, but if there's a time where I'm like really tired, or if I'm having like a
Yeah,
shitty day, I'm like, I'm gonna do it in the morning. I'm not gonna lose sleep over it.
right.
But but my sisters, I have younger siblings, and they're at the house. Okay. They're still at the house. And so my sister's sleeping. This is my 16-year-old sister. My mom comes in after a long day at work. My sister is literally asleep. Okay. She comes in the room and she goes, Lali, go, why are the dishes in the sink? Go in the kitchen and go clean it up. And Lali wakes up with her eyes like, Mom, we are on a speck on a rock in the universe.
Oh
And
my
you
God.
clean, do dishes, and it is midnight.
Hilarious.
But to that point, we were on a speck on a rock
On a rock
in the
in the
universe.
universe. Yes.
And it's like, do these things really like matter? But
Mm-hmm.
all that to say, I love that. Like, you really have to bring everything you have. Like, if you have a job to do, like, what can you do to be creative? How can you get people on board with what you're doing? And you don't have to learn all of these new skills. You already have everything
Mm-hmm.
within you. Of course,
Mm-hmm.
you have your education and all that. Cool, cool, cool. But like, a lot of the things that I drew upon when I needed inspiration or to like really be creative is because of my losses, or because
Mm-hmm.
something I've experienced in my life of being like my lived experience, right? Like my street smarts, not so much my like
Right.
school smarts. So
Totally agree.
yeah,
Totally agree. I always say Papa was the wisest man I ever known. And again, eighth grade education,
yeah,
right? So no, I completely agree with that. And I do think it's oftentimes you have to experience a lot of what you don't like in work first before you start to realize what really gets you in the flow
Yeah.
and what really excites you. And that's a part of the process. I would also say to be patient and kind with yourself, which is something I have always struggled with and still struggle with. I'm the type of person where it's like, if I'm not earning or learning, I gotta go. I gotta move on. What's next? I like to be challenged. I get bored quickly, and I want to be always feeling like I'm contributing and doing my best. And
Mm,
when I don't feel like that, I start searching. I call it the knocking. I feel like there's something knocking at me to like figure out what's next because this ain't
wow.
it. And I will
And this
say,
is
yeah, I will say that it's a great part of me because it keeps me ambitious and keeps me moving along. But there's also a piece where you have to be patient with yourself. And sometimes I do believe the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, will slow you down in life in moments where you need a moment of self-reflection and pause.
Oof.
And you have to accept that and realize that this is a period of your life where you need to just exist
Yeah.
and do
Wow.
that deeper self-reflection because I think we can get so caught up in, especially with social media today, which it's
Talk
the
about it.
comparison game. Comparison is the thief of all joy. You can sit there and say, I should be traveling every week because that's what all these people on Instagram are doing. I should be buying that handbag. I should be doing that. And it's you just are going to make yourself crazy. You're going to make yourself crazy. Practice gratitude
Absolutely.
every day and realize the things that you have control of and what you don't have control of. And in the ways that you can, pick your passions and start to realize them in your day to day, even small little things. And it
Yeah.
truly makes a world of difference.
I'm so happy you said that. And also, I will say though, the comparison or the FOMO that happens with like, do you know how many people had FOMO last year of not being at Cannes because of how amazing that
I know, I
was?
know, I
I can
know.
only imagine it's gonna be the same thing. But like even with like South by Southwest and VidCon and CultureCon,
Hmm.
all these amazing like different spaces that I literally just recently learned about after I quit my corporate job and like I'm starting my creator journey and stuff like that. But like, yeah, like the FOMO is real, man. Like with the people going to these events, but like I love everything you said. Like you can really like show yourself grace. You can only do so much. Focus on what you can. If you're able to go to at least one this year or able to learn from other
Hmm.
people, something that I did, like when people go to these events, especially, it's a lot of money to be able to go to every
Yeah.
single one of these iconic experiences. That's why I think LinkedIn is so powerful because I've been able to
Hmm.
learn so much from other people's like experiences until I get to the point where I can go to, some of these awesome experiences. But
Yeah,
I really love that you
absolutely.
said that too. So, um, but with that, what is something you're looking forward to this year with Cannes this year? And what's something that you hope is going to impact people in the creative industry?
Yeah. There's so much to look forward to. I'm in my spirit of hope. I feel really hopeful for honestly the first time in a long time. I've had a rough couple years, and
Yeah.
I entered this year really with a spirit of renewed hope and enthusiasm of what can come.
Yeah.
And my work obviously helps with that because I'm surrounded by so many great minds and creative people. And I think specifically for this year's festival, something that I'm really um, pleased that we did is we launched a scholarship initiative. So for the first time ever, you have the ability to apply for a comp pass to attend CAN, and we are funding essentially 1,000 comp passes for anyone and everyone to apply. So it's pretty incredible. And if you're listening to this and you think, oh, I never have a chance to go to CAN, I can't afford it, go to our website, find out more information, or find me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to share more information with you. I am really looking forward to a more diverse population at CAN this year. It's been my personal passion project off the side of my desk to also try and get more Latino representation at CAN. I'm working very closely with We Are All Human, which is an incredible organization that's dedicated to progress for Hispanics specifically. They're going to be at the festival in a big way.
Yeah, shout out to Claudia. I love that.
Shout out to Claudia. We love Claudia. My friend Steven at Univision and his amazing team is going to be at the festival this year. So my goal in arriving at the festival is showing up and seeing more people that look like me. And because it is a big gap for us. And I think there's so much education that needs to be done toward our community about opportunities in the creative industries. I don't know about you, Mimi, but when I was growing up, I had no clue what I was supposed to going to do for a living. I thought you could be a doctor, a lawyer, a mom, a teacher, like a dentist, like the top five suburban type jobs, the way that I was raised.
Yep.
And not that there's anything bad about any of those jobs, but nothing ever spoke to my soul. And it wasn't until I went to college and started just learning more and understanding what other people were seeking and other people had opportunities to do. I was like, wait a second, I could plan events for a living. That sounds fun. I love events. That could be something I could be good at. I'm really organized. I love the feeling of a live event and the effect that it can have on people forever. Like maybe I'll do that. And that was kind of my red thread throughout my whole career. And I make a point to share those types of opportunities with younger folks in our community because so many little brown and black kids are sitting in their schools right now, not seeing a space for them and not understanding what they can do. And there are so many opportunities. I spoke at a school in downtown Sacramento. My friend works at the district there and invited me to come speak. And when I was sharing with them case studies from the Nike Just Do It project, and their eyes are getting so big looking at me like, wait,
Yes.
I could be on a team that works on creative for Nike? Like,
Wow.
what a dream that you just don't know the possibilities. So I think education is a huge gap right now that I want to fill. And I think Lions as a business is starting to do a lot more of that. And I'm excited to see how that translates into the types of people that we see coming to the festival. So that's what is really exciting for me this year.
That's so awesome. Thank you for all the work that you do. And that's why it's so important. So I'm going to say two things right now. Representation is important. That is so
Yes, ma'am.
important. That's why we need people like you in these types of positions to make sure these experiences are representative and inclusive of our communities without tokenization, because that's a whole nother thing. But that's a whole nother conversation for another day.
A whole other conversation.
You know? But it's like, and I was actually just having this conversation yesterday with my work colleagues. I'm a part-time director of career development. So I'm literally working with Gen Z and students all the time. And I'm literally, they have the same exact experience. You can do that? Like, what? I didn't know, you know? And I was talking about like representation is great, but it's not enough. It's what you do with the representation, right? So like it's one thing to have Latinos and Black people and Asian people and folks that identify as Muslim, like in these key positions at work. But like, what are you doing with that representation?
Yeah, you got to
Right?
pull people up with you.
Exactly. And it's like, once you have those folks in position, then they can help the younger generation do the same thing. But it's like, if our representation is constantly being attacked and constantly being taken away or not even just completely overlooked and underestimated. I love Miles Worthington's always talking about underestimated, like people who are being underestimated of minoritized identities. And that's so important. That's so important. I love everything you said. And I'm so excited to see, you know, what's going to come out of this. Yeah. And I think things are changing. And I do feel that like in the creative industry, I feel like there's more opportunity for that to happen just because like if you think about TikTok and social media, I mean like a lot of the trends come from Black culture and they come from Latino culture, and then like it literally transcends everything. Everything. Then you have like top white executives at companies saying bruh or bet or like come on, like, you know, like that comes from our communities, and it's like, all right, but it's like creativity wouldn't be anything of what it is today if it wasn't without Black people or Latino people or all the different cultures. And so I really want to uplift that because, and I do feel like, again, there's more opportunity, I think, now in the creative space, but then I also think about creative careers, like people who are in marketing or graphic design or even public relations or whatever, communications at companies that are not in the creative industry, right? Like manufacturing, consumer goods, and things like that. And it's like, yeah, it's a really tough space to be in depending where you are.
Yeah.
But change is good, have to start somewhere. And I love everything that you're doing. Seriously.
Thank you so much. I really
Yeah.
appreciate it. And
Yeah.
again, anyone listening who is interested in
Yes.
Cannes Lions or just needs to chat it out with someone about where their career is going, or, needs to just hold space with someone, my LinkedIn messages are
Yes.
always open. So
One
find
more
me and we can chat.
Yes, I love that. And like one more thing I saw too, just opportunities wise, since we're talking about Cannes Lions, I saw recently that y'all launched the Jodi Harris Scholarship. Would you maybe
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that? And I have to say, the reason that really stood out to me for a long time, because I knew Cannes was around for a while,
Mm-hmm.
but just like our concept of talking about legacy and like honoring our people,
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
really love that Cannes is honoring someone like a martyr in the creative industry and doing
Yeah.
it forward. So I really wanted you to kind of talk a little bit about that, and if folks are in those similar industries, how they can potentially get
Yeah.
involved.
It's a really special project, one of the favorites I've ever worked on in my career. AB InBev is a wonderful client of mine and dear friends as well. And they have been named Creative Marketer of the Year, which is our one of our biggest awards at Cannes Lions for 2 years in a row now.
Super cool.
And in the lead up to their first win, Jodi Harris led their creative excellence team internally at AB InBev. And she unfortunately passed away of cancer before she ever saw the business that she worked so hard to support and truly transform from the inside out over a 5-year journey. She passed away before she saw AB InBev take home that really special award, which, of course, for the team at AB was devastating. And Jodi was such an incredible person to so many in the creative community. Marcel, the global CMO at AB InBev in 2022, when they won for the first time, Marcel and the AB team essentially came to me and said, we want to be able to honor Jodi and her legacy. If it weren't for her, we wouldn't be here. What can we do? So we came up with this really beautiful scholarship initiative where AB InBev and Lions would fund 10 folks from underrepresented backgrounds from all over the world to come and experience a amazingly bespoke and curated program at the festival. So our first cohort came to the festival in 2023, and they were, let me tell you, Mimi, like some of the most amazing people I have ever met. And the joy and the passion and the spirit to which they brought their whole selves to Cannes. We had someone from China, we had someone from Nigeria, we had someone from Brazil, and they all became like a little family. I'm still in a WhatsApp chat with them, talk all the time. They're just the best people. And this year will be our second year. So 2023 was the inaugural year of the Jodi Harris Scholarship. 2024 will be our second year. And we're now bringing back an alumni tutor from the first year program to help lead the second year program. So we're really trying to build a beautiful community for the legacy of Jodi. And what is so incredible, and one of the questions we asked as a part of the application process for this is, what will you do with your experience at Cannes back in your home market? Because to us as a business, we know that you're going to have an incredible experience at Cannes. There's no way that you can't. We're going to make sure of that. But what are you going to do with that? It's one thing to have this moment and this opportunity, but what you take from it and how you uplift others and bring others into that experience with you is what we were really looking for in people's answers. And it was so amazing to see the results off the back of our inaugural year. This incredible woman, Nengi, who is from Nigeria and was a part of the first cohort, shout out to Nengi. She went back to Nigeria after Cannes and set up this incredible organization for creative women in this space to form a community. And she's been running that since she got home from Cannes. So seeing in real time the exact kind of effect that we wanted to have with this program, it truly brought tears to my eyes on multiple different occasions and reminds me again of the power of our brand and what we can do, and the power of organizations like AB InBev. When you have really great leadership who sees the gap in diversity and representation and wants to do something about it, and also recognizes that you can build something beautiful from grief. It's like win-win, win-win. And then all the people that Jodi is still affecting after she's passed is just such an incredible thing to witness. It's been really a blessing to be a part of it.
Thank you for sharing all of that. And yes, shout out to everyone who was able to participate in that last year and all the folks that are getting considered for this year. I mean, like, that's the power of legacy, and that is the power of channeling your grief into something purposeful. And I really love that, because what other organization is doing that right now? And I feel like that really stands out to young people. It stands out to, job searchers right now, or like just trying to find places and organizations and communities that value loss, value really life things, and I mean, just like humanizing the human experience,
Mm-hmm.
and the fact that, you know, through this scholarship, Jodi's legacy gets to not only continue to live on, but like you said, impact people for generations after generations. Like, this is the start of
Yeah.
something so beautiful, and how incredible is that? And wonder if there's also other, it just kind of gets me thinking about other folks that have really contributed to the creative industry in various backgrounds, various, different
Mm-hmm.
types of roles, where this can, other organizations can draw inspiration from this. What kind of scholarship or what kind of opportunity can you create in honor of someone who um, recently passed away, or maybe better yet, still alive, and can honor them while they're still here?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's super beautiful. um, wow, Gab, I'm just so grateful to know you. What a great conversation.
Oh,
I can't wait for
likewise.
I can't wait for everyone to really, take this in. But before we end today, after, at the end of every Grief Sense episode, I like to ask a journal prompt. And I have to say this as well, like, I haven't met many people who share our experience of losing multiple people back to back,
Mm-hmm.
a short
Yeah.
amount of time at such a young age.
Yeah.
And I really want to honor and amplify that for a lot of the people who also share that experience, because, usually, and of course, I'm not discounting anything or invalidating anything. Like, losing one person is one person too many. Okay. So, like, but
Mm-hmm.
just imagine multiple people, right? And there's so many different layers of grief that come with that.
Yeah.
But there's something special about someone who can navigate multiple losses and still be able to commit themselves to work and family and, pursuing passions. And that's everything that I'm seeing from you, and like honoring, keeping legacy top of mind. Like, that's just so beautiful. And I think an
Mm-hmm.
incredible way to live life and really approach life like that.
Yeah.
So I really want to know, what would some advice be to young grievers out there who have experienced grief, but especially serial grief, where they've lost multiple people?
Yeah, I would say when that does happen to you, it is very easy to think that you are cursed, or that you did something wrong in your life to deserve this level of pain, or that God has it out for you. There's so
Mm,
many things that you can go through in your mental shame spiral of, why is this happening to me? Why do I deserve this? And I think I was stuck in that place for some time. I remember I used to say out loud to multiple of my best friends and to my husband, like, I actually think I'm cursed. Like,
mm,
this is truly how I feel. And it was truly how I felt at the time. And something I think that helped me to conquer that internal, very real emotion that I was feeling, was to give my suffering purpose. I
mm,
think when you assign purpose to your grief, it ceases to be suffering. You can't get rid of the pain. Pain will always be there,
mm.
right? There are some days, it's again been 6 years since my papa passed.
Yeah.
I will wake up some days and just I will feel like an elephant is sitting on my chest, and
Mm,
I miss him so deeply. And all I want to do is pick up the phone and hear his voice and feel the unconditional love that he gave me. That will never go away. I'll feel that when I'm 80 years old. I will always miss the people that I've lost. But to not get weighed down by the pain of it, I shift my mindset into being, what would he want to see me doing with my life? And how can I honor him and all of the ones that I've loved? And I think, again, just shifting the mindset of really assigning purpose to your grief is really helpful, especially when there's so much that happens in short succession. Another thing that my husband really helped me through is, you can also start feeling like you're living in this fear of,
mm,
when is the next shoe going to drop. I constantly was anxious about someone else dying.
Mm.
And for a while, anytime my husband would leave the house, I would be like, come back, like, is he going to get hit by a taxi cab on his way to work? I mean, truly, the neuroses that was happening in my mind of like being so scared of losing anyone else.
Yeah.
And what he kind of helped me to realize is, of course, another shoe is going to drop. Life is a million shoe drops. That will
Whew.
always happen. If you are living in fear of the next bad thing happening, you will never truly live. You have to accept that death and tragedy and pain and suffering is a real part of human existence, and allow that again to shift your perspective. And I think one of the biggest reasons I love living in New York City, and I think it's one of the best cities in the world, is you cannot live here without having perspective. If I'm having a bad day, it takes me literally one step outside of my apartment to realize that I am so blessed and humbled to even just have a roof over my head, food on my table, a partner who loves me, a family who loves me. So having perspective for your grief is also something that really helped me too. And then, of course, tapping into the self-help. Therapy is huge. Finding a good therapist that you trust, hugely helpful for me. Leaning on podcasts like this, girl, the amount of podcasts I listen to,
Same.
the amount of books I read, Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl, highly recommend. Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle. Option B, Cyril Sandberg. Some of these books that just got me through the worst times of my life, because I think the biggest part of suffering also feels like feeling like you're very alone. And I think, to your point, a lot of people don't understand what it's like to lose so many people in close succession. So you can feel very lonely in your pain. Um, but it's actually not the reality. If you search for it, there are a lot of other people experiencing exactly what you are. And that's why what you're doing, Mimi, is so powerful. Providing a platform for people to listen and not feel alone, I think, is step one in the healing process for so many people. So thank you for doing this and inviting me, because I just, again, I'm so honored to be here.
Oof. Wow. That was so beautiful. And I feel like it's like a mirror. I feel like it's just a powerful reflection right now. I really never had this conversation with anyone before. So I
Mm,
feel really seen, and I want to thank you for that. Because like me, besides my family, of course my family is also experiencing all of these losses, but it's like, wow, someone else,
yeah,
another Latina, close in age, kind of experiencing this. To your point, we're not alone. If you are willing to share your story and put yourself out there and nurture your personal brand, or just like network, and yeah, just not be afraid to reach out to someone. Like, you never know how much you'll have in common with someone,
totally.
right? Like, it's so wild, like, especially to the point, and it's so funny, I actually just posted today a video of my boyfriend. We've been together 7 years. His name is Willie.
Oh,
uh he in December, I literally was so wild, back to back. I got into a car accident, and then 7 days later, my cousin died.
mm.
And I always wanted a Bengal cat. That was like my dream animal I've always wanted, and
Oh, bless you.
I always knew her name was gonna be Mulan. I was like, I want a Bengal cat, and her
Oh
name
my
is
God,
gonna be Mulan.
so cute.
And lo and behold, apparently he was planning for 6 months to get me, this Bengal cat named Mulan. And it just so happened that on the day that my cousin died, he picked up Mulan. Mulan was ready to come home.
Oh,
And I say all that to
that is
say,
amazing.
yeah, like literally pulling on all the heartstrings. Okay. And like literally a couple days ago, we're just hanging out at home. He's playing video games. I'm watching my show. Mulan is laying on his chest, and she like puts her paw on his face, and I'm just sitting there and I start crying, and he's like, "What's wrong?" And I was just like, I'm just like, I know we're all gonna die one day, and I just wish I can bottle this moment up forever.
Yeah,
These are the
yeah,
moments that I live for. And like,
yeah.
one of my biggest fears too is like Willie goes, because like my father passed away when I was young, and my mom was a 17-year-old teenager with me. I was 8 months old
Mm.
when my dad died, and you know, like that's my biggest fear because that's what happened
Yeah,
to my mom.
of
And
course,
like
of
I
course.
love Willie so much, and I'm like, man, like I love this man so much. I just pray for his safety, his
Mm-hmm.
health, and for
Mm-hmm.
all his dreams to come true. And I just wish we can bottle this moment forever. But to your point,
Yeah,
and today's point, your base point is like to just be present, appreciate it
yeah,
while we have it. And that was such a good reminder. So thank you.
of course. Take it all
Yeah.
in, right? Like,
Oh,
again, we only do this once, and it's really beautiful when we are so lucky to have people in our lives that we love so much that it hurts so deeply when they're not physically with us anymore,
yes. I'm
you
gonna give him
know?
like the biggest hug later. I'm gonna
Everyone go give the people you love the
yes,
biggest hug. That
I
is
will.
another thing. Like, do not hang up a phone with someone unless you tell them you love them. I'm such a big proponent of this. Like,
Yes.
if there is anything in your soul, for anyone listening, that you feel called to go say to this person, literally stop what you're doing, pause the podcast, pick up the phone, and call the person that you love, because it is so important. The amount of things that are go unsaid and people pass away and live with regret. Regret is just a terrible thing to live with. If you can avoid that feeling,
Yes.
as much as you can, take the initiative and do it. And I promise you, like, it is very rare that you will feel disappointed.
Yeah.
Like, you, at the very least, you will feel liberated from
Yes.
the weight of what you were holding inside. So,
Beautiful. Ah, love that.
yeah.
Thank you for that reminder. And so, Gabrielle, where can people get plugged in with you? How can they amplify your work? Yeah, how can they get connected with you?
Yeah, LinkedIn and Instagram are probably the two best ways. I'm not a creator myself in the sense on social media, but again, what I live to do is to help build relationships and connect people with amazing other people. So Mimi, there's a whole host of people I want you to meet after getting to know you a little bit better. So yeah, LinkedIn, Instagram, Gabrielle Perez, you'll find me. I'm here to help in any way that I can.
Awesome. All right, y'all, and definitely please go check out Can's website, Can's Lions website, and really leverage the opportunities Gabrielle said. And yeah, and thank you so much for being here. Honored to know you again. Your story is so powerful, so impactful, and I can't wait to see all of the amazing things that you will continue to do because I know it's going to be great. So,
Thank you, friend. Likewise. Thank you so much for having me. Very honored to be here.
yes, thank you. All right, everyone, we'll catch you on the next episode.
Grief Sense Familia. That wraps up another episode of the Grief Sense podcast. If this resonated with you, please feel free to share with someone who will appreciate it and tell a friend to tell a friend. Also, I'm a firm believer that feedback is a gift. So, I'm just saying, I won't be mad if you decide to leave a review and a rating of your experience on the podcast so far. Also, let's help each other find community in grief, and let's amplify these stories far and wide. Thank you for tuning in. En solidarity y con mucho amor, Mimi.